She never imagined that a single careless phone call could shatter the sense of safety she had spent years building. Olivia had trusted him, trusted the man she married, the man who made her feel like home. But the words she overheard that evening made her stomach twist, her heart hammer in ways she couldn't control. The plans she heard weren't just for a trip. They were a warning she never expected. And in that instant, everything she thought she knew about her life teetered on the edge of a terrifying unknown. Hello, my friends. I am Olivia, and this is Olivia's Love Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. I had always thought of our life as ordinary in the sweetest sense. My mornings were a soft rhythm of coffee brewing, curtains pulled back just enough to let the sunlight spill across the kitchen floor, and the faint hum of our old refrigerator that had somehow survived every move we'd made over the years. Michael, my husband, would come downstairs, still tousled-haired and half asleep, and I'd watch him take that first sip of coffee, the one he swore he needed to wake his brain, and I'd feel a small, steady swell of contentment. I loved these small, simple things. They were the quiet stitches holding my happiness together. But more than anything, I craved certainty. Certainty that the person I loved, who had promised me forever, was really there. That we were building something real and lasting. That Tuesday evening had started like any other. I had stayed late at work, papers stacked neatly in my bag, fingers smudged with ink from reviewing a client's contract. Michael had said he'd order takeout, and I imagined us eating together in the glow of our kitchen lights, laughing over some ridiculous sitcom rerun. But when I opened the door, the house was unusually quiet. The air smelled faintly of citrus cleaner, like he had spent the day preparing for something, or someone. I shrugged it off, thinking maybe he had just cleaned up early. I hung my coat and was about to call out to him when I heard the unmistakable sound of his phone vibrating on the counter. Michael was in the living room, pacing slowly, phone pressed to his ear, and I froze as the words reached me without him realizing I was there. Yes, next week, our last trip, she won't suspect a thing. It has to be perfect. My heart stuttered. Last trip? I pressed my hand to my mouth, the edges of the counter digging into my palm. My brain spun. I had to be mishearing, right? Maybe it was some work thing, some innocuous detail I didn't understand. But the tone of his voice, the quiet thrill, the certainty was unmistakable. I edged closer, trying to make sense of what I was hearing, the cold dread crawling up my spine like ice. My chest tightened, each breath shallow. And then, almost as if the universe was testing me, he said something that made my blood run cold. And she'll never see it coming. The words hung there, heavy, suffocating. And in that moment, standing frozen by the doorway, I realized this wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was something else. Something I couldn't yet name, but I knew I needed to find out. I couldn't move. My feet felt like they were glued to the floor, and my heart pounded in my ears so loudly I was certain Michael could hear it from the other room. Part of me wanted to storm in, demand answers, and rip the truth out of him. But another part, an almost terrifying part, wanted to stay hidden, to listen, to understand exactly what I was hearing before I confronted him. I pressed myself against the wall, the faint texture of the wallpaper scraping my forearm, and inched closer, straining to hear every word. Michael's voice, calm and meticulous, sliced through the silence of our home. Yes, we'll leave Friday night. Make sure the tickets are booked under my name. She can't know anything. The more I heard, the tighter my chest became. My mind raced through possibilities, each one darker than the last. Was he planning to leave me? Was someone else involved? Or, God forbid, was this something worse? Something that could hurt me? Every scenario seemed plausible, yet none of them made sense. Michael wasn't like that, was he? I took a cautious step back, bumping into the edge of the counter. The sound seemed deafening in the quiet, and suddenly Michael's head snapped toward the kitchen. My stomach sank. He hadn't seen me, yet the second before he turned, I felt the fragile line between suspicion and certainty snapping. I had to get answers. I grabbed my phone from my bag and typed out a quick text to my best friend, something vague. Call me. Urgent, please. My fingers trembled as I hit send. I didn't want to panic her, or me, but I needed an anchor, someone who could help me process this spiral before it consumed me entirely. Then I heard him laugh softly into the phone. That laugh. The one that had once made me fall for him because it was warm, unguarded, a sound that made our house feel like home. Now it felt like a blade twisting in my chest. Don't worry. Everything will go perfectly. She'll never see it coming. I promise. The promise echoed in my mind. I felt sick, lightheaded, like the air had been sucked out of the room. For a moment, I wanted to run, to escape the uncertainty pressing down on me. But my legs refused to move. I had to know. I had to hear more. I edged closer again, my breath shallow, straining for every syllable. And that's when I heard it, a name I didn't recognize at first, but then it hit me like a punch to the stomach. It was the name of someone who wasn't supposed to exist in our lives, someone who had never been mentioned. I'll meet her at the dock. Make sure she doesn't suspect a thing. Dock? Dock? The word alone carried a weight that my mind couldn't process. What dock? What trip? Who was he meeting? Every possible thought collided, chaotic and paralyzing. I pressed my hand to my mouth, trying to stifle the gasp that threatened to escape, my pulse hammering like it might burst through my ribs. And then, without warning, Michael hung up the phone. He set it down and turned, exactly in my direction. I froze. My secret was no longer a secret. The moment had arrived, and I knew that nothing would ever be the same. Michael's eyes locked on mine, and for a moment, the world seemed to shrink to the space between us. I could see confusion flicker in his gaze, followed by something darker, an awareness that I had overheard more than I was meant to. My throat went dry. My hands trembled, clutching at the edge of the counter as if it could hold me upright against the tidal wave of panic crashing through me. Olivia. His voice was soft, almost pleading, but there was an edge I hadn't heard before, the kind that made my stomach twist into knots. My mind scrambled for something to say, anything to keep him from realizing just how much I had heard, how much I now understood. I thought I heard something, I managed, my voice trembling despite my best efforts. I'm probably imagining things. He shook his head slowly, a shadow crossing his features. You weren't imagining anything, he said. There was a pause, almost unbearable, and I felt my pulse quicken, the room suddenly too hot, too tight. But you don't understand yet. You haven't heard the whole story. My stomach dropped. My heart pounded like it was trying to escape my chest. What do you mean? I asked, though my voice sounded small even to me. Michael, what is going on? He ran a hand through his hair, pacing just a little, and I noticed the lines of tension around his eyes that I had never seen before. It's complicated, and I wanted to tell you, I really did. I couldn't, not yet. I swallowed hard. Every instinct screamed at me to demand the truth, to tear it out of him with words sharp enough to cut through any lies. But another part of me, the part that had loved him through years of quiet mornings and late-night talks, paused. Maybe he wasn't lying. Maybe there was a reason, something I couldn't see yet. "Michael," I whispered, "I need to know, now." He hesitated, his gaze falling to the floor. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating, until he finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "That trip, it's not what you think. It's not what it sounded like." My chest constricted, my mind spun, refusing to accept the possibility that there could be a not what it sounded like. Yet the way he stood there, vulnerable and unguarded, made me pause. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to hope. But hope was dangerous. It could make the truth hit harder if I was wrong. He stepped closer, his eyes locking on mine again, and for the first time, I saw a depth there I hadn't noticed before, a depth of fear, of desperation, of something he had been carrying alone. "You have to trust me," he said. "I was trying to protect you. I was trying to protect us." And then he reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope, thick and official-looking, the kind that made my stomach flip. My hands shook as I took it from him, hesitating to open it. The air in the room felt electric, heavy with unspoken truths and fragile trust. I could feel the weight of a revelation pressing down on me, threatening to break everything I thought I knew. I tore open the envelope, my eyes scanning the first line, and my breath caught. What I saw was enough to make my knees weaken, my heart hammering so violently I thought it might shatter. The truth was far stranger than I had imagined, and far more dangerous than my fear had dared to predict. And in that instant, I realized that nothing would ever feel ordinary again. I stared at the papers in my hands, my mind struggling to process what I was seeing. Michael's secret was laid bare before me, and it was more than a simple misunderstanding. It was a truth so heavy, so impossible, that my first instinct was to drop to the floor and let it crush me. "Michael, why didn't you tell me?" My voice broke, a whisper trembling through the room. "Why keep this from me?" He took a deep breath, his eyes never leaving mine. "Because I wanted to protect you. I wanted to shield you from a life you didn't choose, from burdens you don't deserve. I didn't want to drag you into it until I was absolutely certain I could handle it myself." I felt tears sting the corners of my eyes. The betrayal I had feared wasn't betrayal at all. It was sacrifice. Every late-night phone call, every secretive plan, every quiet tension I had misread as deceit was actually him carrying the weight alone, so I wouldn't have to. My heart twisted painfully, a mix of anger, relief, and disbelief. I don't know what to say," I admitted, my fingers clutching the envelope like it could anchor me to reality. This is a lot. "I almost thought," my voice faltered, "I almost thought you hated me, or worse, wanted to leave me." He stepped closer, taking my hands in his. "Olivia, never. I love you, more than I can ever explain. That's why I had to do this carefully. The trip, it's not about leaving you. It's about something we need to face together, a danger that I couldn't reveal until I was ready to fight it with you by my side." I swallowed, my chest tight with emotion. My mind raced, trying to reconcile the fear I had felt just moments ago with the truth standing in front of me. Every beat of my heart seemed louder, echoing in the quiet of our living room. And as I looked into Michael's eyes, I realized that the man I had married, The one who brewed coffee for me in the mornings, the one who laughed with me over sitcoms, the one who carried secrets too heavy for me to imagine, was still the man I loved. Slowly, the tension in my body began to release, like a storm finally moving out to sea. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding, tears spilling freely down my cheeks. I, I want to trust you, I whispered. I want to believe you. Michael pulled me into his arms, and for the first time that evening, I felt the fragile warmth of safety return. You don't have to just believe me, he said softly. You'll see for yourself, I promise. And we'll face it together. No more secrets, Olivia. Only us. I nodded against his chest, letting the reality sink in. The fear, the misunderstanding, the betrayal, all washed away in the quiet knowledge that he had risked everything for us. And in that moment, I realized something profound. Love is not just the simple mornings and shared laughter. Love is carrying each other through the unknown, even when the weight is unbearable, and trusting that you'll never be left to face it alone. The envelope still clutched in my hands contained the key to a new chapter, one filled with uncertainty, yes, but also with the kind of trust and devotion that only comes from surviving the storm together. And as Michael held me, whispering reassurances into my hair, I finally understood. Some secrets are noble, and some sacrifices are made in love, so that the people we cherish most can stay safe until the right moment to share the truth. And that moment had finally arrived.